Now let's look at how to perform the calculations in question 3 of this part of the data analysis project. So question 3 in the scatter plots and regression section asks you to calculate the mean of each of your quantitative variables for each value of your categorical variable. So in my case, I've got cities, and my categorical variable is region, the region of the country that that city is in. So what I'm going to be doing for example, for my commute variable is I'm going to be calculating what's the average of my commute variable within each region. So for cities in the west, what's the average commute? For cities in the south, what's the average commute? And so on. And I'm going to be doing that for the commute variable and also for my two other quantitative explanatory variables, fatality rate and gas price. So the first thing to do when you want to do the calculations for question 3 is to create a pivot table. And the way that you do that is to go to the Insert tab here and click on Pivot Table. Now by default, in my case, it selects all of my data, and that is what I want here. That's the easiest way to do it, but just in case it doesn't select all of your data, the way you do that is just to click and drag, select all of your variables, and then make sure that it's going to create the pivot table in a new worksheet just to keep things clean so you don't get confused about what's where. Okay, so then just make sure it's in a new worksheet, click OK, and now we've got a blank pivot table here in a new worksheet, and we need to drag these variables here into the right boxes in the lower part of the right side here. So what we want in our rows, for our rows, is our categorical variable. So in my case, that's region. So I'm going to click on region and drag it into the rows box. So now I've got my 4 values on my categorical variable here: Midwest, Northeast, South, and West. And to calculate the mean for my quantitative variables within each of those categories, I'm going to drag my quantitative variables down to the values box. So that's commute, that's my response variable, fatality rate, one of my explanatory variables, and gas price is the other one. So by default, what it's calculating here is the sum. It's adding up all of the values of these quantitative variables within each category. So within the Midwest, it's adding up all the commute values, all the fatality rate values, and so on. So we don't want the sum, we want the average. And the way you change that is to go down here to the values box and to click on the drop down here and go to value field settings. And then instead of sum, we want the average. So just click on average and then OK. So now we've got the average for commute, and just do the same thing for your other two variables. Change it to average. And in my case, it might be easier to compare these values if we don't have so many decimal points. So I'm just going to reduce the number of decimal points, so I just have 2 decimal points. So now that makes it a little easier to compare these values, and that's the other part of question 3, is just to comment on whether there are big differences between the categories here. So are there big differences in these variables between different regions of the country? We see that for the commute percentage commuting by bike, there's definitely the biggest average percentage in the West, and that is followed by the Northeast, and then the Midwest and the South have similar rates of bike commuting. For fatality rate, definitely the South kind of sticks out. There's more bike fatalities per 10,000 bike commuters in the South, and the West is the lowest. And then in gas price, it looks like the West has the highest gas prices, and the Northeast is next, followed closely by the Midwest, about the same as the Northeast, and the South has the lowest gas prices. So that's all I'm looking for in the description, is just to comment on what categories have what values on your quantitative variables and comment on the big differences between those categories.